Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might possibly be upon the globe. I'm Edward McNair, the Executive Director of NANOG, and I'm going to take a few moments leading into the community meeting, just talking about a few updates regarding to the organization itself. So strategic plan updates. For simplicity, we narrowed our strategic plan into three key areas: education, experience, a meeting experience, and online collaboration. I won't go into details about the strategic plan, but you can follow this link that's sitting listed below at nanog.org/strategic-plan. Another piece that we built out of the strategic plan was a strategic timeline. This encompasses going back from our meeting at NANOG 73, moving all the way forward to NANOG 75. And the purpose of this strategic timeline is to see what things we've achieved for our community and what things we're going to push forward for the benefit of our community. So when you get a moment, take a time, follow the URL, and take a look at our strategic timeline and also our strategic plan. We're always like to hear your comments, so you can reach us easily. So on the top of our screen, there's go to our website, and the top of the screen, there's a feedback button. All those things come to NANOG staff, and I do read all of them. So if you have any comments, criticisms, fire away. We're here to serve. And speaking of serving, I'd really like to take a moment and honor and kind of pay tribute to the NANOG staff. We're a small team. Counting myself, there's I would say 6.5 because our accountant Claudia serves with us half time. But I've tasked these folks with delivering the best meeting experience that's possible within the industry. And I'd like to give a special acknowledgement to Claudia Bristol, Lee Brooks, Day Harvey, Brandy Herrera, and Sean Winstead, and especially Valerie Whitcop, who was the person who helps manages the program committee and puts this event together for all of you. This team works tirelessly, long hours, to make sure that we can deliver a quality experience for our community. And again, if you get a chance, send them a little email, thank them for the service that they do to this organization because they work very, very hard. Our 2020 annual report will be coming out soon. We should be seeing that in the next couple of months. The staff is pulling this all together just to give a kind of a linear record of what we have accomplished and what we did over the course of 2020. And then finally for me, we'll be doing polls at the end of the session. If you're interested in participating in these polls, these are live polls. So you can go to this URL, pollev.com/nanog, or you can join by text by texting 22333. And then also there's a mobile app that you can download as well. So we're going to bring the screen back up again right before we start the polling. But other than that, enjoy the rest of the presentations as I hand things off to Steve Feldman.
Thank you, Edward. Next slide, please. So at the end of NANOG, whichever one we just did in San Francisco, at the end of every NANOG, we have a program committee sort of get together to review what happened and talk about what we're going to do next time. Okay. And we decided that sometime in 2020, we should have an actual retreat like the board does, where we all get together for a couple of days and go over our own strategic plans. So we cleverly plan to do that probably in Boston summer, or maybe if that didn't work in Seattle. And of course, things changed and we didn't get to meet in person. So in December, we ended up having a virtual retreat where we all got together in a couple of long Zoom meetings and went over our own strategic plan. There were two sessions, one in December, one in January. We talked about a bunch of things. So next slide. So the first day was talking about the PC structure. Various aspects of that are, one of the big things actually is how to onboard new members to the program committee. Some of you hopefully will be joining the program committee next week. And we want you to get up to speed as quickly as possible and able to contribute. So we talked about a few things like fixing our documentation. The PC handbook is a living document that's been around for years, but it rapidly gets out of date if people don't pay attention to it. So we formed a group that will go through and review and update it to reflect current reality. And we also talked a bit about mentorship program for new PC members. We did that somewhat informally last year, and it seemed to have worked really well. So we want to keep doing that. We talked about the PC leadership, whether the current roles of chair, vice chair, and secretary are the right ones, and documenting better what the responsibilities of each role is. We talked about the program committee subcommittees. We have a bunch of subcommittees, some of which do a lot and some frankly don't do anything at all. So we talked about reorganizing those to optimize our effort. And we actually came up with a new one, which we'll talk about in a few moments. We also talked about the general need to have a diversity of skills and perspectives on the PC. If we all think alike, then the program will be pretty bland. But if we have people with different skill sets, people with different industry perspectives, then we can cover a lot of ground and have what we hope is a very good program. The second day, we talked about a few other things. Talked about the meeting format, in particular, how we're going to deal with hybrid meetings once we get to do those. We have right now are optimizing for the remote audience, which means that we have limited amount of program time in the day. We have to make it so that people on the east and west coast of the U.S. can or Canada can join productively. We also want to start setting aside specific time slots for training and tutorials as that works its way back into the program. We talked about soliciting talks and soliciting speakers. We want to expand both the topics that we can cover and the pool of speakers that we have. We want to document and standardize how we rate the talks and how we review the talk slides to make sure they meet our standards. And ultimately, this all comes into figuring out what the program committee's strategic vision is. So that's something that PC will be working on over the next year as well, is articulating an actual vision and making sure it's incorporated with the organization's vision as a whole. So with that, I would like to pass it on to Liz Cully, who is the chair of a new subcommittee, which is doing some data analysis. So Liz, please take it away.
Thanks, Steve. So for the past 26 years, NANOG has been building a repository of presentations, tracks, and tutorials, and lightning talks, also keynote speeches that is utterly unique, valuable, and authoritative. NANOG has a long and really brilliant history of hosting the voices and wisdom of those who are building and maintaining the internet, and of, in some cases, being a primary source of record for internet events. So I know that lots of us have searched around for a specific talk we remember hearing at a NANOG a long time ago, because what comes up in NANOG is often on the leading edge of technology trends that we depend on for knowledge when they do come up. So this project that I'll be discussing is really to mine that repository, to understand what this community cares about so that we can continue to deliver what this community needs to keep up with the onslaught of demand. So what we are doing right now is cataloging every one of those talks, keynotes, lightning talks, tracks and tutorials, so that we have a single place where we have a record of them. In addition to just cataloging, we're tagging every record with the relevant metadata that will help, and this will help us in a lot of ways. Number one, once we have this done, we'll be able to provide an intuitive web page of popular topics with links to the YouTube videos and their slide decks. And we'll be able to provide data to potential speakers on the history of any subject that has already been discussed, including, say, which topics are being asked for most often in the survey comments, which topics are being viewed most often on YouTube, and a list of presentations on any topic, including links to the YouTube video and the deck. So we can use the survey data and YouTube view counts to forecast which topics will be popular for soliciting talks. We'll be able to create dynamic introductions, and I hope that you have enjoyed the ones that you've heard here at this NANOG already, for each speaker with relevant history of their previous talks at NANOG. And really, having this knowledge of our past is a great way to plan for the path forward. Here is the proof of concept of what we're talking about here. We took the last 5 years, we took every talk, presentation, and tagged it, and here's what we came up with. And as you look at this graph, over to the left-hand side here in the orange is how many times this topic, so we're talking about automation, general engineering education, SDN, ISP, cloud, Jeff Houston came up a lot. How many times this topic was requested on the surveys? And so those are the ones that were requested more often are here on the left. And then here on the right, the ones in blue are more how many times we have accepted these presentations, how many times they have gone live at NANOG. So we have things like DNS, BGP, and DDoS. So for example, here on the right-hand side, we have had 44 talks on DNS, and 8 times DNS has been requested on the surveys. And here on the left, we've had 40 requests on the surveys for automation, and only 26 times have we presented talks on automation. And then what we've done down here is cross-reference those references to how many times talks on these subjects have been viewed on YouTube. So if we look at, say, for example, this DNS, where we've had 44 talks, here there have been 27,000. Those 44 talks have had 27,000 views on YouTube. And if we look at something like automation here, where we've only had 26 actual presentations on automation, but those presentations have gotten on the order of 70,000 hits on YouTube. And this is important. When we look at, for people who are trying to decide what they want to do a talk on, and the idea here is that we want to have as many people be able to take advantage of this amazing platform as possible. The problem is a lot of people would say, yes, I am an expert in this thing. I'm an expert in DNS. I'm an expert in RPKI. I'm an expert in segment routing. How can I say anything about any of these subjects? Because the job that I do is 100% proprietary. I would never be able to say anything about any of these subjects because I can't tell people what I do during my day job, and we understand that. And I think the idea here is that we would encourage people to say, take a look at these things, understand how often they're requested, how often we give presentations on them, and how much interest they're getting on YouTube, and say, even just to do a 101 type introductory class on this subject would be a great way to get your feet wet with NANOG. That you can come and speak to us on the NANOG stage on any one of these topics, which really will be wildly popular. You'll get thousands of hits on YouTube, even after you have, for years after you have done your presentation, and be contributing back to the community. And any one of these topics, it'll be popular. And you don't have to give away anything that's proprietary about your company if you just take it at the very base level and present to us in kind of an educational way. So we really do encourage that. So just for some further information about the proof of concept of the past 5 years, if we take it as representative, what we understand is that 66% of the presentations that we give at NANOG were on the top 20 subjects. There were 115 categories, both in the presentations that we've been given and that were requested on the surveys, and they matched up amazingly well. As of December 2020, the past 5 years of talks had gotten around 1 million views on YouTube, with a total view count growing around 4% per month. If we watched all of the talks and presentations that had been given at NANOG every day for 8 hours a day, it would take almost 8 weeks to get through them. There's an amazing volume of information out there. There was a total of 550 presentations, 357 individual speakers from 218 organizations, and 90% of our speakers only present 1 or 2 times. So the top 20 speakers, which is anyone who presented 3 or more times in 5 years, gave 131 presentations, or 24% of all NANOG talks. So looking forward, I wanted to first give a huge thanks to Jeff Bartig, Anna Valsami, and Valerie Whitcott. They took this project from what was really just a 5-year proof of concept into reality, that we should be able to gather this information for every talk that we have information on in NANOG's history. And especially thanks to the program committee for creating this new subcommittee that we have called data analysis, where this work is really being, has a lot of attention and is being nurtured. And I really thank the program committee for providing the room and the sunlight that this project needs to keep moving forward. So with regards to progress, currently we have around 1,300 talks kind of recorded and tagged. Ultimately, do the math, we expect around 30 talks per NANOG. We expect there to be around 2,100 agenda items, but the problem is the easy part is done. One thing that happened when we started moving out of the proof of concept 5-year phase into the let's do all of NANOG phase Anna and Valerie, who jumped right in there and rolled up, we rolled up our sleeves and said, okay, we're just going to do this. Jeff Bartig looked, he noped out of the whole thing and said, this obviously needs to be automated, and came up with a script to download a bunch of stuff from YouTube. So that made that part of it much easier. The problem is that now that part's done, there's a lot of stuff that is still on the agendas that we obviously needs to be gone through one by one. And that's where we're at right now. There's still a lot of heavy lifting with this. So that really brings us to where we're at right now. We are in the midst of this project. There's a lot of heavy lifting left to do, but while we're doing it, we would love to hear from you. What else would you as our attendees like to see? Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Let's go in and jump in and get a few poll questions answered. Again, here's where you would pop in to get the access for the polls. I'll give about 10 seconds for everyone to kind of jump in and get yourselves ready. Responding to these is very helpful for us. It helps us get data so we can better serve you. So I'll go on now to the first question. And the first question is, what topics would you like to hear more about at NANOG conferences? And this is live, as you guys are giving feedback, it will appear live on the screen here. So we'll give this about a minute, and then I'll shift to the next slide, which will deactivate this particular poll question and move to the next poll question. So currently we have 7 responses, so please jump in and give more. Again, we appreciate your feedback. It helps us a great deal in terms of serving our community. And even beyond this, as I mentioned before earlier, at the NANOG website, there's a button in the upper right-hand corner that says feedback. You can pop in there, ask any question. You can also go to our contact page where you can send a correspondence specifically to the board, to myself, or to other departments within NANOG. Okay, we'll give it a few more. We're now popping up around 55 responses. And again, we appreciate the feedback. Without this kind of feedback, we can't serve your needs. So the vocal ones, we hear you. Give it another 10 seconds, and then I'll shift to the next poll question. They're still rolling in. There's nothing like community feedback. Okay, I'm going to close this one down and move on to our next question. Wow, they're still rolling in. That's great. All right, our next question. Are you planning to attend in person for NANOG, I guess that'd be 82 in Minneapolis? Again, we use this data in order for us to get a clear feedback on what our community is thinking. And we also, in addition to these polls, we have surveys. If you can go ahead and fill out those surveys and give us feedback about the conference and what you've experienced. What this really helps us understand is what is the will and thought of our community. The more voices we hear, the more accurate picture we get in understanding of what you're looking for us in terms of managing and running the organization. Currently up to 53 responses. We had 104 in the previous one. Again, the more data we get, the better for us. Or actually, even the better for you. Okay, I'm going to give this another 20 seconds, and then we'll move on to the next poll question. Okay, I will move on to the next question. And similar to the other, how many are planning to attend NANOG 83 in Toronto? Our community is important to us, and we're going to get into more questions. We'll kind of get a little more granular data, understanding of what your needs are, what your concerns are. And again, if none of the questions we're asking here kind of fit the things that you would like to know more information about, as again, please hit the feedback button on our site, and we'll definitely respond to all of them. Okay, I will then move on to the next question. What will determine whether you attend a future in-person NANOG conference? We know that the experiences over the past year regarding COVID has made a serious impact on our community and the world as a whole. And again, we're trying to get feedback to help us understand more and more of the needs of our community and how to serve them. And again, thank you all for your responses. This does help a lot. Okay, we'll give this another 10 seconds, and then I will move on to the next questions. 2 more, and then we'll be finished with this section. All right, moving on to the next question. So, out of curiosity, have you taken the COVID-19 vaccine? Considering the state of the rollout, this is not surprising, but we need to ask. Give it a little more time, then we'll switch to the final question. Okay, so moving on to our last and final survey question. Are you planning to take the COVID-19 vaccine? All of your feedback is anonymous, and again, we thank you for sharing your thoughts. Okay, so for a matter of time, we're going to close this out, and then go on to any open Q&A that the audience might have. Thank you. So on to you, Michael.
Hi. Great, Edward. Pardon me there. For those of you watching, I am currently monitoring the Q&A section tab of your chat. Depending on how you have your window set up, it's either on the bottom or the right or the left. And we'll give that a couple minutes here, and we'll wait for some questions to come in from folks. And I don't have any yet.
No questions means we're informing you, keep people up to date.
Well, while we're waiting for questions, I want to thank everybody for answering the poll question on topics. That was very useful information, and we'll try to have many talks on Jeff Houston in the future.
We do have one comment. It's not a question. The program analysis was brilliant. Thank you.